Hey there, Capsuleers. You're listening to Low Life, an EVE Online podcast discussing life in low-security space, hosted by Cypher and Spence. The Low Life podcast is not an official CCP Games production. It is a labor of love by two veteran EVE players with a passion for the game, and low-sec life in particular. The views expressed on this podcast are their own. Warning for all you sensitive types out there, we do cuss and troll on this podcast, so listener discretion is advised. The show can be found at evelowlife.podbean.com and on your favorite podcast dissemination apps. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Aradus Gunnell from the EVE Low Life podcast. It's been a few weeks, but unfortunately, we had a little issue with scheduling, as well as some problems with the power at my house, so to speak. There was some work going on behind my home that the water company was doing, and they cut the fiber optic line for AT&T to my whole block, and I was out of the loop for a few days due to that, so I apologize. However, we're going to get started today with a brand new episode, and this is going to actually kick off a series of episodes, a 6-series set. Now, here's the thing. They're not going to be one after the other, okay? We are going to have some interviews interspersed in between, but there's going to be a chain of 6 episodes discussing this topic, and the main topic for today is going to be running a successful corporation in EVE Online. We'll get to that in a little bit, but first I want to hit you with some news, some things that have popped up on December 1st, 2021. Here we go into the final home stretch for the year, as it were, and I'm doing this one solo. I'm also going to be doing it with virtually no editing, so be prepared. You're going to hear some ums and uhs and some stutters from me, so I apologize for that in advance, but I wanted to get this out to you guys and get it rolling. I'm going to try to keep this episode to 40 minutes or under. So, let's get going. Number 1, the Concord permaban issue that's going on right now. A post went up today on the forums just a little while ago from CCP. It's actually, let me see who the actual one is. It's GM Arcade. Yep. So, hey, hello everyone. Lead GM Arcade here. This is discussing the, if you pre-pull or defensively pull Concord, there were some people that were getting bans in the game. Then there was a thing that said that it's a known and declared exploit. People have been talking about that, and there's been some issues. So the thing is, there is an update on this that I want to go through, because some people were kind of flaming this guy, this GM Arcade, for posting this, but they weren't reading the whole thing. And this is what's the important part. It's at the end. The update. It's clear now, this quoting GM Arcade, it's clear now that the above messaging is too vague and does not provide sufficient details or convey the intent of the policy changes. For this, you have my apologies. I would also like to apologize to the CSM, who were not consulted before the above post was made. It's fairly typical that the CSM are not consulted as a matter of course when it comes to customer support policies, but in this case, it would have been beneficial to do so. After listening to their feedback, the CSMs, we have decided not to implement the policy update mentioned above. There will be no changes to how support are policing Concord interaction, and that quote-unquote pulling Concord or defensive spawning of Concord is currently permitted, but we reserve the right to change this at a future date. Okay, so they're kind of taking a step back and saying, you know what, we should have talked to the community a little bit more about this, especially the CSM, whose job it is, as it were, to represent the community. And kind of looked into this because ganking is, whether you like it or not, a fundamental part of EVE Online gameplay. It has been since the beginning. Can flipping and whatever else. It's just part of EVE, right? So to take ganking away from people, to just say, nope, not allowed, that was kind of an arbitrary thing, and it really was putting another crimp in everything, this relationship that we already have with CCP as a player base. So it is pretty cool that GM Arcade came back and said, like, hey guys, we took a look at this, we talked with the CSM, and we're not going to be so heavy-handed, but we do reserve the right on a case-per-case basis to kind of look at things and see if something is an exploit or not. So that's good news. So that's number 1. on the list of news. Number 2, there's all the New Dawn Quadrant stuff going on. If you don't know what's going on, if you've been living under a rock for the past month, New Dawn Quadrant is coming out. That's supposed to be the age of prosperity after the age of scarcity here in EVE Online. It really doesn't look that way to most players of EVE. Even people who don't play EVE. There's been news articles in gaming news about how the community as a whole is pretty upset about what's going on. By and large, is pretty upset about what was going to be rolling down the pipe. And now there are rollbacks in that. Some of the rollbacks are good. They're taking another look at this waste mechanic that they were going to put in there. They've readjusted mining drones so they're not completely useless. They're taking a look at the crystal situation because some people have said that crystals aren't really doing it the way they should. The math is wrong, so that's being looked at. Some of the things I didn't like that they took away is that they rolled back the changes to like the Endurance and the Prospect, the Expedition frigates. I really like those changes. I was excited for them. Those are apparently going away for right now. There's some other things that are going on. They're taking another look at the past they were going to do over the mining barges and exhumers and so on. So basically, the news for that is the New Dawn Age of Prosperity Quadrant update is up in the air and it's being evaluated. So big thanks to the community for stepping forward and basically putting their foot down the CCP and saying this is not prosperity and y'all need to take another look at this. And it was in such a way that CCP actually did have to listen in this case. So good job, hooray community. Good job, guys. Last on our news bit is the Capsuleer Chronicles comic book series. Apparently, if you go over to the EVE Online news, it says Capsuleer Chronicles, a new EVE comic series. I actually saw this on Hilmar's Twitter post this morning. It said, story-hungry Capsuleers, we are proud to introduce the Capsuleer Chronicles, a new EVE Online comic series developed in partnership between our narrative team and Dark Horse Comics. Pretty cool. Love Dark Horse. Dive into the story of Adore, a daring Capsuleer with a checkered service record as she becomes embroiled in the Triglavian invasion of Rarivos, the flashpoint that led to the very first attainment of final liminality. The days-long battle saw involvement of thousands of independent Capsuleers on either side of the conflict, fighting alongside Edencom or heeding the call of the enigmatic Zoryag Triglav to turn against the Empires and assist the Triglavians in their campaign to regain a foothold in the ancient domains they were long ago forced to abandon. This first chapter in the 4-part series, Velocity, can be previewed on the comic's official landing page, which is on the EVE Online website. I'll put links in the show notes. With the full 20-page chapter available to read online through a selection of partners for free. The rest of the series is slated to be released throughout the upcoming year, and you can discuss this exciting story with your fellow players in a thread on the EVO forums. So pretty cool that they got that in there. I like anything that gives us some more lore and story for the game is pretty cool. So that's neat. Really enjoy that. Before we get into the main part of our topic for today, and I know it seems like I'm rushing through the news and everything, but I really want to get to the topic today. I want to spend some time on that with the limited amount of time we have with each other. I want to plug our other broadcasts that we have. So we do this is my little crew that does the podcasting and stuff. We do this podcast, which is the Low Life podcast, which originally started off as a low sec focused podcast. It's kind of evolved already since then because we've kind of moved out of low sec. If you listen to our past episodes, we talk about why. All right, what it really comes down to is accessibility of content, and we're going to kind of go into that a bit in this topic when we talk about running successful corporations. But we have this, which airs bi-weekly. Try to put it out bi-weekly as much as I can. You can get this on your favorite podcast host, iTunes or Podbean or whatever. And you can actually find it at evelowlife.podbean.com is the official site for it. On Sundays at noon Central, which is currently 1800 Eve time, we do a live talk show called Downtime, and that is on twitch.tv/JoeyPorkroll. I'll put those links in the show notes as well. JoeyPorkroll. That's my Twitch name. So you can check that out there. We do a live talk show. It's about 2 hours long, hour and a half to 2 hours long. We pick some topics. We go over some things that are going on in EVE for the week. We have guests. We just kind of shoot the bull and enjoy EVE. And on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central, which is 0100 Eve time, I believe. on that same Twitch channel, my Twitch channel, we do what's called School of the Boat. And we have just had the first episode where we talked about the Magic 14 skills. Every week we want to talk about a different topic that would be helpful for returning players, new players, or somebody who just wants to kind of brush up on their ability to play EVE or explore a new aspect of EVE content that maybe they haven't done before. Okay, so next week we're not too sure what the topic's going to be. I think I'm going to try to get Cypher to get on there and have him talk a little bit about tackling. But it's any type of EVE topics. It's not just going to be PvP related. We're going to talk about marketeering and arbitrage and BPOs, BPCs. We're going to talk about all different aspects of it, abyssals, all that kind of stuff. We're going to get to it as that show goes on. That's Monday nights, 7 p.m. Central U.S. time, aka 0100 EVE time. So that's my plug for that. Let's get into the main meat and potatoes of this episode for the next 30-ish minutes, which is talking about running a successful corporation in EVE. Now, let me start off by saying that I do not consider myself the end-all, be-all authority on how to run corporations in EVE, okay? There's no one person that can, just like there is no one person in the real world that can say this is how you must run a business or an organization, and that is the only way to do it, right? Everything in that is dynamic, whether it's real life or in EVE. But EVE is a very good simulation of real life, so there's a lot of things that convert over between the two. In real life, I do run a business, a small business. In EVE, I run a small corporation. A lot of things I do between them carry over, believe it or not. I mean, it's just how EVE is. EVE is that kind of simulation that you can do that. So if you have certain real-world talents, skills, artistic abilities, you can carry them over into the game and actually use those to profit within the game or make a name for yourself. So a little of my history, so you understand where I'm coming from with this, is I started playing EVE July 5th, 2004. Okay, Aradus, my main character, was born July 5th, 2004. And just like everyone else, I've won EVE a few times over the years, but I've played EVE more than I have not played EVE during that time. Okay, so over the 17 and a half-ish, almost half years that I've been playing this game, I've played more often than I have not. During that time, I have spent a good amount of it as a corporation CEO or a director in a corporation that I founded. I may have handed the corporation off to another director to kind of oversee things if I had something going on in life, or we just wanted to shake things up and give a fresh outlook on things, okay? So I've ran some corporations that were extremely successful. I ran some that bombed, but there are two that I am the most proud of are my TEN Evening News, or the Tactical Entertainment Network Corporation, which we ran for about 8 years. And that was a low-sec-focused corporation for fans and friends of my old podcast, TEN Evening News, which focused on low-sec faction warfare and, at the time, Dust 514 when it was around. That was pretty successful. We were part of Fweddit back then, okay? And we had a good thing going there for a while. But faction warfare, Dust 514, and LowSec pretty much, like, it shit on itself, right? It didn't get the love that they needed. Dust 514 fell apart. Faction warfare does not get the attention that it needs or deserves from CCP. That's been a complaint that many of us have had over the years. And LowSec in general right now is kind of a quagmire of low activity. And I know that coming from me, that sounds terrible considering this is called the Low Life Podcast, but it's a fact. It's just keeping steady, engaging content in LowSec is, for a group, is hard to do. So we have a group called the Omni Defense Network. It is two corporations, Omni Defense Corp and Omni Defense Intelligence Network. The Omni Defense Corp is kind of our newbie starting corp where people learn how to play EVE the way that we play it. And then they move into Omni Defense Intelligence Network, which is our group that is in the Bastion. Okay, we are in Fountain. We are part of the Imperium. And we do all the content there. And I'm going to explain why we do that here in a little bit. It will come up frequently throughout our discussions. So, again, I'm not saying that like we do it the best way of anybody. What I'm saying in this is it works for us. I'm going to talk about how we do it, why we do it, and how that might be able to help you if you maybe run a small corporation or you would like to run a corporation. So, there's going to be 6 parts of this series that we're doing. This first one we're calling First Steps. Okay, and we're going to go over some things that if you're thinking about running a corporation or you just started one, some suggestions I have on what you should think about when you're doing this. The next episode will be called Backend Systems, where we're going to go over things like Eve HR, Alliance Auth, Seat, and programs that are used basically to help you manage your corporation, and why I think they're essential and needed for every established and growing and strong corporation that wants to survive the ages of Eve. Okay. The third episode, we were going to go over recruiting. Notice I don't put that up front because to me, there's things that have to happen before you even start recruiting. Episode number 4 will be providing advanced content for your members. We're going to talk about that. Number 5 is joining an alliance that fits your culture. And number 6 will be striving for longevity. Again, looking down the road, going for that long game of Eve and being around for a while, like some groups that we will talk about in that, and we'll use as examples when we get to that. Now, some topics in the series will overlap. We'll talk about them multiple times, but that's because they're important and they are interconnected. So, first off, let's talk about your first steps. This is going to kind of seem a little disjointed. That's how my brain works. I apologize. So there's the flow to this may seem like it jumps back and forth, but if you are a new corporation forming, let's say you are a group of friends that you've been playing for a little while and you're like, you know what, we should just form our own corporation. We're sick of being in the NPC Corp or in one of the big tax evasion corps or whatever, and we want to do our own thing. Well, there's your desire, right? Now, part of that is you need to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, okay? Forming a corporation in EVE Online is a big deal. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just if you're doing it for more than just yourself and a small group of friends. If you're actually looking to recruit and bring other players in that you do not have a personal connection with, there's certain things that you really should be aware of and be cognizant of throughout that process of developing it and growing it and managing it long term. Because if you just decide, I'm going to make a group and it's going to run itself, guys, this is not World of Warcraft. You can't just throw a guild up with a fancy name and say, we get together once a week and we do raids and we do this and let's do it. Yeah, sometimes that works, but for the most part, it doesn't. Long term, that's just not gonna fit here in New Eden. Corporations in EVE are content drivers. Okay. We as in the player base, do not really like when CCP developers stick their fingers in our content pie. Sometimes it's nice, but a lot of times they ruin things, in our opinion, that we don't want them to do. Okay, look at the Triglavian invasion. For a lot of people, that was complete bullshit. Right? There's people that lost things, they lost space they'd lived in for years, that they had assets there. It became kind of a huge debacle with that, right? And it really hasn't been developed anymore since the final liminality happened. It happened, they sectioned it off as its own little hunk of the pie in space, and that was it. CCP was like, okay, guys, good luck. They kind of made that space into like its own little static wormhole and just let it be. So that being said, we don't like people sticking their fingers in our pie. We, corporate CEOs, alliance heads, coalition leaders, directors within that, the big FCs, we develop the content for our members. We find the things for them to do. We try to create avenues for our members to do things. And that is a game in and of itself for us. It's like a job, but for some people, that is where they get the entertainment. Okay, I get more entertainment in finding things for my guys in the corporation to do than I do from flying in a fleet myself. Now, that doesn't say I don't like to fly in fleets. It's not that black and white. I love flying in fleets. I've been having a lot of fun flying in the Imperium fleets lately. I log in, I get the ping on Jabber, I log in in 1DQ on that character, I hop in a ship, I go out and I can F1 monkey all day long, and it's kind of brainless for me to an extent, and I enjoy it. It's a good change of pace. I can just be a line member over there. But at the same time, even in this huge organization that's the Imperium, and I'm way, way, way down on the totem pole in this, I still have to make sure that my guys are getting the activity they need and deserve, and that they expect from us as being part of our corporation. Okay? So, before you jump in with both feet and say, I want to make a corporation, we're going to grow big and we're going to do all this stuff, make sure your desire and your drive to do it is coming from a good place. Understand that you are going to be responsible for the fun of other people that pay to play this game. So you have to really have a desire to do that aspect of it. You're going to spend a lot of time doing admin work. You're going to spend a lot of time talking to people, developing procedures. You're going to spend time, like I wrote a 37-page handbook. Now, some people might say, that's stupid. We've never done that. Well, okay, that's fine. Maybe it works for you. Maybe it doesn't. But for us, it does. We made it kind of a one-stop shop for our new members where they can learn the history of our corporation, who founded it, the background of those people, and why we have this culture that we have. Culture is a word you hear on the show a lot. I like to bring that term up a lot. You're going to hear it here again in a minute. But you have to decide why you're doing it. And from that, you kind of have to pick a little bit of a theme. Now, this can evolve over time. Usually it does. But a lot of times guys start a corporation and they say, we're going to be miners, or we're going to be mission runners, or we're going to be small gang PvPers. And that's what you start off with your little crew. Okay? So in doing that, you are picking a channel that you want to go down. If you are not too sure how to do that, pick a role model. There are many successful corporations out there in EVE and in real life that you can say, I like how they do this. I'm going to borrow some of the things they do and use that as my model. Okay? So you can say, we want to be mercenaries. Okay, great. Then you should be looking at like how the network does things, Noir, Alex AF Cards guys. You can look at some of the, kind of pirate / merc groups out there, Black Flag, whatever. Whoever that you look at, there's plenty of them out there that you can say, I kind of want to, I like how they do it, and base it off of that. Don't be afraid to reach out to those guys either and say, hey, do you got a Diplo I can talk with? Hey, I'm kind of interested. I'm starting my own group. Do you have anybody that would be willing to give me some advice on, things I should look out for? Don't be afraid to do that. The worst they can say is no. Okay? No, we don't. All right. Well, you never know. You might find somebody. And there are people in real life that you can say, I want to kind of model our business model and our corporate model and our leadership model after this person or this company. Maybe you want to be a front runner in industry and you say, I'd really like to do things along the lines of this company. I like how General Motors did things back in the 70s or something like that. And you decide that's what you want to do. Or how people do it in the game. All right. So think about that. Look what others do. Emulate the good. Cast off the bad. That's not a bad thing to do. Again, EVE is a simulation more than a game, right? So you're going to if you're going to do this right, you're going to end up spending time doing research and setting things up right if you want it to survive long term. Okay. That is essential. Also, I'm going to put in a little side note here that really isn't in my show notes, but you're probably going to catch shit from people when you first start doing things in EVE, okay? People are going to call you a new player trap. You're one of those corporations that new players go into and then they end up hating EVE. And that's because these are generally grumpy players who are in a larger organization that's been around a while, a S tier or an A tier type of corporation that have done things right for years, and they've already made their mistakes, most of their mistakes, and somebody's grumpy and bitter vetting and they want to shit on the new guy that's trying to make a corporation. My advice to you is to ignore them, okay? Just ignore them. If you are truly desiring to do it the right way, fuck those guys, all right? Screw them. Let them hate. They're not coming over to you anyway. Who cares? Just ignore them. If you go on like the EVE Online Discord, you're going to get that a lot if you put up a recruiting post. I put one up there like a year and a half ago for our corp, and somebody started shitting on us, calling us a trap. Oh, if new guys go to that corporation, they'll never survive. They're going to quit the game. Da 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 da. You know what? Most of my members, the majority of our members, have been with us a while, and many of our founders are still here. So I'm not just saying that like as a ha ha ha, we do it right. It's more of a flip in the bird at those guys that said you'll never make it. Well, we have made it. We're doing well and we're growing. We may not always, but right now we are, and we're proud of that. If you're going to do it the right way and you're doing things that you feel are correct and you are seeing results from it, fantastic. I had a real life mentor who's a multimillionaire guy that I worked for many years ago when I first got out of the military. And he said to me, I do not care how you go about doing this our business that we did, as long as you do it legally, ethically, morally, and effectively. So basically, he didn't give me a piece of paper with a list of things to do and say, this is how you will do everything. You have to go by this method. You know, he was not a micromanager. He said, as long as you do it, and you do it legally, ethically, morally, and effectively, I will not get up in your grill. And that was his whole thing. It was a really great way to manage and mentor, I felt. So that is something I've taken with me for almost 2 decades now. When it comes to my professional life. So we kind of try to do the same thing in our corporation. All right, I'm not going to tell somebody how to run a mission. We're going to give them the tools to run it. We're going to tell them the best ways that we've found to do it. And if they decide to do it with something else, but it works, okay, great. We've got guys right now. Most people run missions in our area in Ishtars. Okay, that's kind of the meta in EVE Online for nullsec mission running. They are, combat anoms, ratting. We've got guys that do that. We also have some guys that do it in Dominixes, and we've got one guy that does it in an Armageddon. Now, some people would say, why would you use that? Well, because that's what he wants to use, and for him it's effective, and he's keeping his IS per hour up, and he's not, screwing up. What do I care? Fantastic. Have fun. That's great. Good job. You're not flying around in a, multi-billion IS Chronos and whelping it into NPCs. He's doing it within our boundaries. It's effective. And it's doing what it needs to do, and okay, great, fantastic. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to make those decisions ahead of time how you want to lead. Now, some things are going to pop up later on that you'll have to make decisions on the spot. Just always remember to take a breath, think back, look at your culture and your history within your group, and decide what is best long term, okay? So, desire, choosing a role model. You've got to start building a culture. This is something that I've gone on about for ages on the podcast, on my live streams, and everything else. Develop a culture. Find out what it is that's your group as a core that doesn't necessarily involve EVE Online itself. EVE Online is the vehicle with which you guys communicate in a visual chat room. What is it that really draws you all together? Okay, it could be anything from... for my group, we're mostly military veterans. So we got some active guys as well, and we also have some civilians. But for the most part, we're U.S. based, and we've been in the military. That's what draws us together. Now, the advantage of that is when things start to get to the point of suck in EVE for us, if either, you're just getting a little burned out, or, sometimes these dev blogs come out and we're like, oh man, here we go again. And people get frustrated. They don't leave. We don't lose members. They don't just cascade out of our group. Our Discord does not empty out. They might go play other games for a while, but they're still with us. They're still part of our group. And the good news about that is when the burnout goes away and some of the pain of what happens in EVE, whether it is from that personal burnout or due to other factors, they come back. They see what we're still doing in the game. They come back. So we don't lose members. They go on reserve status, or they just move over and play another game for a little while. That's okay. Sometimes you don't want to play EVE 7 nights a week, right? You want to play 1 night a week, and then you want to play Sea of Thieves or some of the other games we've been playing. Hell, we've even been doing the Idle Champions game lately, just because it's brainless, and we can put that on and just let it play itself as we sit there and talk in our chat room. So develop a culture. Find out what it is that you already have or that you want to develop it around. I'm telling you right now, if you can find a link outside of the game that makes you connected, then you will transcend any problem that may pop up within the game itself, within the simulation itself. Maybe you're all working class stiffs. Maybe you're all dads. Maybe you all come from a certain area of the globe. You're all, from the British Isles, or you're from Asia, or whatever it is. And that way you have a culture. We can hate on some of the larger groups. Like I frequently pick on fraternity, but even though they're massive, they have something in common that draws them together. The majority of them are from the Asian area, and because of that, they pull together. Look at XX Death XX, okay? The Russian guys. The Legion of XX Death XX. If you read the histories of EVE, you'll see that due to a lot of xenophobia and hate from the rest of the game, the Russians had to pull together very tightly and overcome a lot of the problems they would normally have in a game, even though they're Russian, and just be Russian together. Okay, so there's things like that that pulled them together. That created a culture for them. It created a link. If you have that, it makes it much easier to get through problems. Let's say you got two members in your corporation that they're at odds about something within the game. Maybe someone took something off of a wreck, looted a wreck that the other guy was like, "Hey man, you're not sharing that with us." That could actually be a complete sticking point with some people, and they leave the game over it. You might lose one or both players due to how it's handled. But if you have a culture outside of EVE, then there's a lot of things that can happen in game that will piss us off, that we'll put aside, or to say, you know what, I'm really mad at you right now for this in the game, but I'm going to take a little break, I'm going to come back, I'm going to call you a shithead, and we're going to continue on because we're friends outside of it. All the board of directors for my corporation, all except one who could not make it because of work, we all met in EVE Vegas this year. We all made a commitment, and we showed up in EVE Vegas, and we all spent time together, face-to-face as friends, and developed that real-life friendship outside of the game. Okay, we had never met each other before. We'd been playing games together for, I'd been playing with some of these guys for about a year, and a couple of the guys have been playing with each other for decades. And they had not met each other. They just played other games together. CCP and EVE and Hyper Viper over in Goons gave us the chance to meet face-to-face and develop that real-life friendship. That's that culture thing I always talk about. Okay, so that's something that's important as well. It could be that simple. Oh, well, you know, we meet up each year at these big meetups, at FanFest, at EVE London, at whatever it is. That's what you do. Maybe that's part of your culture. And all year you guys play EVE, but you plan for that event. Okay. The guys in Multiplex Gaming, great guys. I've known Pukin for many years. Far From Pukin's the CEO over there. I've known him for many years through podcasting, because we used to podcast together, and through Cypher, my usual co-host that I have. And he's been friends with Pukin for many years before I knew him. And that's one of the things I've seen about the MPX guys that they look forward to is EVE Vegas every year. They make it a big deal. There's a corporate dinner that they do, like a sit-down fancy dinner. They've got swag bags. I mean, these guys, that's what they do. They hang out together the whole EVE Vegas, right? It's part of it's going and seeing everybody else you haven't seen from other corps and alliances and whatnot. But for the most part, it's MPX Vegas for them, and that's cool. It's part of their culture. Okay? So think about that. If you can develop that culture outside of the game, just figure out what it is, and it might develop organically. You don't have to say right off the bat, our thing is going to be we all play paintball. I don't know what it is, but if you find with the guys that you have together, you have something outside of EVE already in common, then go ahead and try to foster that if it's a good thing, if it's a positive thing. On that note, try to make it a positive thing. Don't make it based on a negative thing. Okay, so like, if you all hate something in particular, we all can't stand this. Any relationship built on a negative is doomed to failure. Look at what happened with Pappy. Pappy came together because of a general dislike and in a lot of cases hate of the Imperium. Okay? The thing that sunk that whole operation of trying to destroy the Goons wasn't necessarily that the Goons were bigger or stronger or richer or anything else. It was a culture war. Okay? It came down to a culture war. The Goons, the Imperium, have a tribal culture. The Space Tribe, Matani talks about it quite often. Pappy did not have that. All they had was a hatred or a disdain or a dislike of Goons. Eventually, that erodes. The hate is not strong enough to keep everyone else together, and it will not overpower the culture of the other. Okay? Think about that. Even if you're a Pappy member and you're listening to this, you might say, man, you're stupid, Aradus. What the hell are you talking about? That's not what happened. This is what happened. It was this and a game mechanic, and, we couldn't get enough people in to jump in and do a battle. No, that's not what sunk it. It came down to culture. It came 100% down to culture, and I will stand by that 100%. Foundational members. Surround yourself with good people. If you look at the memoirs of any successful general, any successful CEO of a corporation, politicians, they will tell you that the reason why they were successful was because they surrounded themselves with good people, talented people. I am not a good IT guy, but I have a couple good IT guys on the board of directors for our corporation. I'm a mouthpiece. All I like to do is what I'm doing right now, guys. I run my mouth. I run my frickin' mouth. I can do that. I can be the mouthpiece for the corporation because I have guys that run our seat server, take care of our website and our wiki, handle our Discord server, make sure our new guys get everything together so they're authed in properly on the myriad of programs that we have to as part of the Imperium to get properly authed in so everyone's set up and can see comms and everything else. I have guys that are really good FCs, fleet commanders. I have guys that are really, really smart when it comes to mining and industry. I have guys that are really good with how to run missions, how to do NPC ratting, PvE ratting, how to do that stuff, make money. We have people that can do that. I can't do that myself. Generally, a cult of personality doesn't last once somebody burns out. Example, Dread Bomb. Sadao was the key part of it right there. Everything revolved around Sadao. He's a great FC. He's a good battle leader. He's a good strategist, tactician. But a few months ago, Sadao started having some burnout. And he had to take a little bit of time away from the game. And things started falling apart with Dread Bomb's Rental Empire. Things didn't work. Now they're going through this they're kind of evolving. They're doing a new thing about themselves. They're getting back to their roots. Sometimes you got to do that. Right? So I'm not shitting on Dread Bomb in this particular case. I'm just saying that if everything is based around one person, a cult of personality, it is doomed to fail. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, but Aradus, you're part of the Imperium. And that is completely a cult of personality based around the Mittani. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. Mittani's the mouthpiece. Mittani is the vision guy. He's the guy up there looking at the macro, not the micro. Okay, he's the vision. He's the one that looks out for that stuff. But he doesn't do that by himself. There is a whole network of big brains that work for him and have for a very long time to get that stuff done. There's a lot of names you can throw out there for all the different myriad of things they do. You've got Angry Mustache out there, who is a great numbers cruncher. You've got Merkelchen. You've got Inominate. You've got Hyper Viper. This guy, these guys all do things for the Imperium. There's people behind the scenes we don't even know about that are working on things. The strategies, not just in battle, but with the economy and making sure all the various software that's used to run such a large organization happens. These big coalitions, these big alliances have networks of smart people that are better than most small to mid-sized corporations in the United States. They actually run better than it. I would say the Imperium runs better than a lot of corporations do, which is crazy when you think about it, okay? This isn't an ass-kissing Imperium thing. It's just that we can use them as an example because it works. It doesn't always work, but by and large it does, right? And some of the things we look at there, we can take that and bring it down to the micro and use it in a small corporation or a mid-sized corporation or a small growing alliance. What programs do these guys use? Oh, well, I can't use that. No, but there's got to be something similar to it you can use that's public that you can use, right? Or, even just the style that they do things. SRP, Ship Replacement Program. That was not something that CCP instituted. That was done by a corporation and an alliance in EVE over a decade and a half ago that said, we need to find a way to encourage our fighters to get out there and fight when they can't rat. They can't mine. They can't make money. But we need to get them in ships on the field, on grid, fighting. And SRP used to be something that was a quote-unquote perk among some small or some alliances. Now it's pretty much a standard. If you're not offering SRP for your guys will get shitty about it. If you're not offering full SRPs, guys get shitty about it, right? So, generally, SRP is just part of being an alliance nowadays or a corporation. So that started with a group. Somebody came up with that, and now it's used by everybody. Okay. Foundational members. Surround yourself with good people. Staying on a schedule. This is important too, guys. Staying on a schedule. If you guys do Monday, Wednesday, Friday mining ops, then stick with it. Now, sometimes you're not going to make all of it, but try to keep it standardized. Standardization is good. We all live very busy lives. If there's stuff that is scheduled, and that doesn't mean that it's required, but it's on the schedule. Hey guys, I'd like to do some mining on Wednesday nights. Let's do the mining on Wednesday nights. The first and third weeks of the month that we do it, the first and third Wednesdays, those are going to be donation ops to the corporation so we can cover our SRP and our bills. And the second and fourth are buybacks. So you mine your own stuff and then you sell it back to the corp or you use it for yourself or whatever, and that's how we do it. But we're going to mine as a group. It creates an activity. It fosters friendships. It fosters community. It fosters culture. And it sets a standard. This is what we're doing, right? If you're like a mining group. Stay on a schedule. Have realistic, not pie-in-the-sky perks. We're going to talk about this more in episode 3 on this when we talk about recruiting. Offer perks that are real and achievable. All right. Careful with swags. Right. A swag is a sophisticated, wild ass goal. It's not really good to have a bunch of those. If you're like, oh man, we do full SRP for our guys. We do full profit sharing for our guys. We do this, we do that. And you can't fulfill that. Then don't offer it. Don't offer it. You can say, hey, this is something we're shooting for. But don't try to sell it to people if it's not really happening. We offer profit sharing. But we only offer profit sharing when we're actually making a profit in the corp every month, which means we've hit our budgetary goals for the month, and then all the extra money goes into profit sharing. We also pay PAPs. If you're going out and flying on combat fleets and you're getting PAPed, your participation points through our coalition that shows that you attended a fleet, I pay you. My corporation pays you for each one that you do. So you're a paid PvPer for our group. That's something we can do. We've decided it's worth it. I've decided it's worth it. Some of my other guys said they didn't think it was a good idea. I think it's worth it, so I'm paying for it out of pocket. I think it's a good idea. I want to encourage my guys to PvP. I want them to get out there and have fun and join fleets. I want our corp ticker on those kill mails, showing that we're out there doing stuff. I want guys excited to jump into a fleet. I want them to make enough money off of flying PvP ships every month that between getting papped for flying and SRP, they don't feel like they're going broke just because they got to fly combat missions. All right, they can actually feel like it's a good balance. They're not going to get wealthy off of it, but they're also not going to go broke. Hopefully, that's the goal, right? A little bit of offset. Have a mission statement and goals. We've been kind of talking about that, both static and dynamic. Before you really get started with your corporation, set some goals, have a mission statement, decide what you want to do, develop that culture. This is the culture we want to develop, and this is how we're going to go about it. This is the structure we're going to go with. We're going to have a CEO, and the CEO's job is this. We're going to have 4 directors. This is their jobs. When a new guy is recruited, this is what we want to do. This is how it's going to go. This is their program. They're on probation for 30 days. They're going to have to do this, that, and the other thing. They have to get certified for this. They have to get certified for that. It sounds like it might be burdensome, but believe it or not, people like structure. People like structure. Pick an area to live in based on content needs, not safety. This is another mistake I see a lot of small corporations make. Let's start in high sec and we'll move on from there. Okay. That can be a safe thing to do, but you could also end up getting stuck in high sec because a couple things happen. Number one, a lot of times it's hard to recruit in high sec. You're going to get alts and you're going to get people who are risk averse, or they become risk averse because you're stuck in high sec and it's quote unquote safer. That's why we loved low sec. Low sec wasn't very safe at all. So we were kind of throwing our guys right into the shark tank. All right, guys, let's go. We're about to go lose some ships. We're about to go get into some fights. But it created an environment for our guys where they learned on the job. And it made it a lot more content heavy. And that was important. That was definitely important. So I'm not shitting on high sec, but I'm saying don't just pick high sec because. If you want to start a corporation and you want to go do something in null, well, that can be hard because most of null is sovereignty based. But there are parts of NPC null space, like Stain, where you can go, and it's going to be difficult because there's going to be other groups there. But if you move in and you're able to hold your own and you start putting out those diplomatic feelers, you might find that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We can get more into that in future episodes. Diplomacy as the new kids. Don't come in with your big balls swinging if you can't back it up. At the same time, you don't necessarily have to kiss everyone's ass. You're going to have to find that happy medium. You're there to make something for your guys, to carve out a piece of space, and to do things in a niche, right? Because just saying like we're a corporation that does everything during every time zone for any people, please join us. That doesn't work. You're not going to really get anybody. Nobody worthwhile, at least. You got to have a mission. You got to have a reason to do it. When we recruit, the recruiting ad says right off the bat, active veteran military, got a crazy sense of humor, come talk to us. We recruit through our culture. That's how we recruit. So when you're doing it, and we'll talk more about this in the recruiting episode, you got to find a way to have a story that fits and that carries into your diplomacy as well. Right? Not just with recruiting new guys, but when you're dealing with other groups. Hey man, we're not here to take over your space. This is NPC space. We're just trying to find a home. We're a little small growing corporation. We're not here to ruffle feathers. Anything we can do to back each other up. This is your home. It's going to be our home too. Let's see if we can work together. Sometimes you find a good group that you can pal around with. Sometimes you can't and you figure out you got to move on until it's time to come back and take it over for yourself. Just remember, diplomacy is important. Doctrines, recruiting standards, and activity requirements. We kind of just talked about this. You got to have a schedule. You got to have doctrines. Just telling guys to fly whatever they want, it's going to get expensive for everybody, and somebody's going to lose a blingy ship, and somebody's going to get upset. Have realistic doctrines, ships that work. Look at the kill boards. Go to Z-Kill and look at what people are flying. The Caracal is an amazing ship. You can get people in a Caracal pretty freaking quick and make it combat effective. And you get 5-10 guys in Caracals, you can pretty much defend yourselves against most small gang activities. Okay? And you branch out from there. You learn how to make doctrines. You learn from there. And then the alpha versus omega discussion. That's a hard one. Do you allow alphas in? Are you omega only? My daughter just said no. She wasn't talking to us. It was just funny. I said that, and all I hear in the background is no. She's talking to one of the dogs. But anyway, do you allow alphas in? That creates some issues too. Alphas can only fly certain things. The alphas aren't necessarily able to do a bunch of stuff. That can be okay for you if that's how you want to roll. If you have a program for that they can still participate and have fun. Alphas can also have there's more of a tendency for them to be possible spies. I mean, there's lots of reasons to say no to alphas, but there's also 1,000 reasons to say yes. You can get some really good guys that just aren't sure about, forking over money every month to play a game that really want to play it. And then you find out that they're really good and you turn that alpha into a full-fledged member. That's one of the best members you'll ever have. So don't necessarily discount it. But you have to think about it. You're going to have to make a choice ahead of time. Are we going to allow alphas or not? Right? So again, not hating on alphas at all, but a decision will have to be made so you don't frustrate people. You don't want to get a good guy in there and then not have him able to do anything. And then he does leave Eve and doesn't come back because he says, F this, man, they wouldn't let me do anything. Well, you might have to try to find activities for those guys. And remember, like we said, as a corporate CEO or director, your whole mission in Eve, 90% of what you're going to do is finding things for other people to do or helping coordinate things for those other people. That needs to be the game you want to play, right? This is management simulation is what running a corporation in Eve is. It's management simulation. So that's going to be it for the first episode, guys. I know that I threw a lot at you in a short period of time, but we're coming up on 50 minutes here, so I want to end it. Next week, or next episode, I should say, we're going to be going over back-end systems, so it's going to get a little more technical. We'll be talking about Seat, Eve HR, Alliance Auth, and a couple other programs that corporations can use to actually run their group, okay, on the back end, to do buyback programs and track activity and so on and so forth. So remember, fly safe. Check out our other shows on our other broadcasts. Links will be in the show notes. Check us out at twitch.tv/JoeyPorkroll. Or follow us here for the podcast at evelowlife.podbean.com. And I will catch you guys next time. Hey, wait, you listened all the way to the end? You sexy beast. Thanks for checking out Eve Lowlife, our little Eve Online podcast about low-sec life. We hope you enjoyed it. Please keep an eye out for our future episodes and feel free to get in touch with the hosts in-game, Cypher, CHYPH3R, or Aradus Gunnell, ARADUSGUNNELL. Remember, we do allow sponsorships and advertising on the show. Paid in ISK, not real money. If you'd like us to plug your corporation or alliance, an upcoming event, or whatever else Eve related, reach out to us to discuss. We can help you make your ad, or you can design your own. Well, that's enough of this shit. Thanks for listening. Later, nerd.